Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to conservation and careful management of the state's forests to make them more resilient and better habitats for wildlife. ChooseWood.com.
From St. Louis Public Radio. This is St. Louis on the Air.
Take us back. What happened?
Oh, it was amazing. So we have a video of this. My husband, Bill, brought her up with our youngest son, Aiden, and they were coming through the parking lot, and she was just hearing my voice and seeing my face. She was barely, her paws were barely on the floor.
It's almost contagious when they come in and they're just bounding in. They're so happy to see you. And they were looking at ways in which we could actually partner with them. And one way we know is that pets and people are better together.
I'm Sarah Fensky. St. Louis Children's Hospital offers a service boasted by just 3 other hospitals in the entire world. The Purina Family Pet Center allows families to bring pets to the hospital to visit a loved one, both dogs and even cats. The Purina Family Pet Center is now celebrating its 5th anniversary, and joining us today to tell the story is Sandra Lin. She's the manager for Global Pet Behavior Research at Nestle Purina. Sandra, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah.
We're also joined today by Michelle Lane. She's the mother of Gavin, who's a 15-year-old who was a patient at St. Louis Children's Hospital last year. Michelle, welcome.
Thank you, Sarah.
So, Michelle, your son Gavin stayed at St. Louis Children's after suffering a traumatic brain injury. Take us back to that time. Were you pretty scared?
Yeah, it was the most, terrified I've ever been in my life. It was a situation where we didn't know from minute to minute if he was going to make it. And any curveball that he could put us through, he absolutely did that. He would go steady, and then something terrible would happen. He'd have a brain bleed. The next week it was a pseudoaneurysm. So it was terrifying because we had no idea, and the doctors couldn't tell us, if he would make it through there, and if he did, what, if any, future he would have.
And was he conscious for all these sort of ups and downs?
He was not. So the night of the accident, until they had him sedated in a drug-induced coma, so the brain had time to heal, so it didn't have to worry about telling the body to breathe or do your own temperature, things like that. So he was in a drug-induced coma until, the end of February, I would say. So a little over a month.
Okay, so that's a long time. Terrifying for a mother. Then when he comes out of the coma, was he scared? Did he even have any sense of where he was at that point?
So he was still on a lot of medicine when he woke up, and he wasn't able to talk like normal words. He would say things, and he thought he was telling you. He knew exactly what he was saying in his mind, but that's not what was coming out of his mouth. He would say numbers a lot. When he first woke up, it was 11. He would say 11 all the time. And he'd say a couple words, and then he would say 11, and then it went to 12. So he wasn't, but we would ask him things familiar, like about his dog. His nurse would say, "What color is your dog? What is your dog's name?" And he would start to mouth like B for Brown or B for Bella, and little things like that. And he progressed pretty quickly, but he was scared. He would, tears would just stream down, but he didn't have the words. So we just had to, every hour, if not even more than that, just reassure him, you're safe. We're doing everything we can. You're going to be okay.
And you mentioned his dog, Bella. This was kind of a touchstone for him as he's trying to get reoriented to this new world he's suddenly in. How important was this dog as you're talking to him and getting him acclimated?
Yeah, so his smile, he would just smile. We would show him pictures of Bella. His younger brother Aiden and older brother Devin were at home and would send videos of the dog so we could show him, because he loved his dog, and it was so important to him. He would just light up when we would talk about her.
So when did you realize that you could actually bring Bella to the hospital? He just happened to be at one of the 4 hospitals in the entire world where you could bring Bella in for a visit.
Yeah, such an amazing thing. So we were there during the pandemic, so nothing was happening. Child Life at that time wasn't bringing around their dogs until a little later on, and Duo did bring around their dogs.
And those are like therapy dogs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which was amazing as well. But we were in the Ronald McDonald room one night, and we were speaking with one of the managers there, and she's like, we have this program. Let me see if we can open this back up, because it's separate from the hospital. The dog won't be coming in. You won't be, nobody else would be around the dog. And we're like, that sounds great. And so I want to say it was in, the end of May, maybe we started that.
Okay, so this was a few months into his stay
yeah.
there. And Sandra, I want to turn to you now because, as Michelle mentioned, this is a separate thing from the hospital, but it's embedded within the hospital. So what is the Purina Family Pet Center?
It's a great question, Sarah. So 5 years ago, the St. Louis Children's Hospital approached us as a partnership could we partner with them to build the Purina, what is known today as the Purina Family Pet Center. And it's really on the insight from the St. Louis Children's Hospital team that the emotional well-being of their patients is critical to their recovery. And the success of their medical intervention. So they're looking at this, and they were looking at ways in which we could actually partner with them. And one way we know is that pets and people are better together. So when we looked at this, we said this is a perfect opportunity to blend our expertise, what we know about the healing power of pets. And so specifically, as you heard from Michelle, she's talking about Bella. So, Gavin recognized, even with the brain injury, he recognized his own dog. And so that's a unique relationship that the patients have with their own pets. That bond is special, it's unique. And so being able to create a space in the hospital, but it's still separated, that is going to be designed for both the pets themselves, because we need to make sure that when they're coming on site, they're safe and they're also in a emotionally positive state of mind, that they're going to behave as they would when they see their family, because that's what the patient wants to see. They want to see that their pets are happy to see them.
It doesn't help anyone if that dog is having severe anxiety,
Exactly.
freaking out, acting out, any of that.
Exactly. So the space was designed with this intention in mind. So it's right off. It's an area right off the second floor of the building, and it's next to the parking garage. So there is an elimination space for the pet to be able to eliminate before and after. Once they're inside, the room is situated such that there's privacy for the families. And there's light, and it's designed as well for clean walls, clean floors, that we can wash them. But it's also that we're also thinking about it in terms of, again, what the pets need to be feeling comfortable so they can behave as they would at home when they see their young family members. And so keeping that in mind, we have the ability to have toys. The floors are something that's going to be comfortable on their paws. There are places for them to jump, to rest. The room is long enough that if the patient is able to throw toys, they can actually play, because that also is not only that there's the emotional benefit there, but it's also that, some of the things that maybe they're resistant during rehabilitation to do because they're maybe fearful, it's all new, they're maybe more willing to do it when they're working with their own pets. It's more familiar.
Boy, that all makes sense, and it all sounds so good. I'm curious, Michelle, how it worked in reality. The first time that Bella was able to come to this family pet center. Take us back. What happened?
Oh, it was amazing. So we have a video of this. My husband, Bill, brought her up with our youngest son, Aiden, and they were coming through the parking lot, and she was just hearing my voice and seeing my face. Her paws were barely on the floor. She was so excited, and she came in and she saw...
Because you'd been staying at the hospital this whole time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I left the hospital one night in the 5.5 months we were there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I hadn't been home with her either, which she was not used to, of course. So she made it in that room, and she saw Gavin, and that was it. She ran up to him, and she's trying to smell, what are all these things, why is he in this chair? What is all, But it was great. Just the look on his face, and she couldn't have been more excited. And like you'd said, the space was big enough, and Catherine from Child Life had brought toys that Purina had donated, and Bella wasn't one to play fetch at home. She was like, there's no chance I'm doing this with you. But in that room, she recognized, I think, that Gavin wasn't able to get up and play with her, so they had mats for us. We were able to get Gavin on the floor. It was nice and clean, and Bella got there with him, and Gavin would throw the ball, and she was getting it and bringing it back. She learned to play fetch in the Purina room.
Fantastic.
With Gavin throwing the ball. It was amazing.
I mean, that's amazing. And it sounds like for Gavin, you said he had the look on his face when he first saw her. He knew right away this was his dog. His dog was back. As you're watching him play with her, could you see a change in him?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that day he was so excited. Something to look forward to. He was in pretty rigorous therapy. He would go in the morning, break for lunch, have school, go in the afternoon. It was every day, even on the weekends. So this gave him something to look forward to see his dog. And he would be excited and tell everybody, get to see my dog today. And it just gave him something familiar with home and to look forward to. And he loved it.
So this was the first visit. It sounds like many visits followed
Yes.
from that. How frequently did Bella end up coming?
So Bella, she was weekly. Every Thursday she would come.
And that was something that you really used to keep him motivated.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it was great. Push him a little bit extra. Hey, if you can go a little bit extra or try this today, remember Bella's coming tonight. Like, let's really push ourselves today, because tonight you're going to be, with your dog.
We're talking to Michelle Lane. She's the mother of Gavin, who's 15 years old. He was a patient at St. Louis Children's Hospital last year. We're also joined by Sandra Lin. She's the manager for Global Pet Behavior Research at Nestle Purina. And we're talking about the Purina Family Pet Center. It's at St. Louis Children's Hospital, one of just 4 around the world. And it just sounds like just an amazing thing for the patients there at the hospital. Sandra, you mentioned this idea that we're better together when we're there with our pets. I'd like to explore that just a little bit. What do we know about the effect that pets have on our emotional well-being?
Okay, great question, Sarah. So there's been quite a bit of research, and I would say really started picking up steams in the 80s, and then it's been continuing, where scientists are looking at what are the benefits, and not just emotional, but also what are the potential physical benefits of interacting with pets. And then in turn, can we develop animal intervention programs, either animal-assisted activities, animal-assisted therapies, that now are more goal-directed, structured, and they're going to have a positive benefit on the health or the emotional well-being of people. And so for us at Purina, this is an area of research for us. We think it's a very important area because we're seeing the changing roles. We saw with the pandemic last year that as we were asked to socially isolate to make sure that we could come out of this pandemic faster, we needed that emotional support. And so being able to understand how we can do better in terms of getting the benefits from that relationship is very important.
Michelle, I'm curious. We've spoken about the effect this had on Gavin, but as you mentioned there, you were spending every night in this hospital, and hospitals are they're a hard place to stay, even when you're not sick, and even when they're doing just a terrific job. It's hard there. What was the effect for you of having Bella back in your life?
I loved it. For that hour, it was, you forget you're in the middle of a hospital, because it's you're in the hospital, but it's a separate room. There's no medical things. You're not hooked up to anything, and you are separated. The doors have different things on them, so you can't see out into the area. So you really are in your own space where you can it was like almost being back at home. You're with your family, you're with your dog, you're playing, and you can kind of escape for a minute from what you have to deal with the other 23 hours of the day.
Sandra, hearing about this, hearing Michelle talk about the impact on Gavin, the impact on her, this just seems like such a no-brainer. Why are there only 4 hospitals that have these?
As you said, we're one of 4, and we're the only one in the region. But it does, as I mentioned before, it's a multidisciplinary approach towards building these spaces. As Michelle talked about, she's lived in this space, she's seen it. It does require the expertise of animal behaviorists, the doctors themselves, the hospital administrative staff, and the resources to maintain it. One of the nice things that we did, though, when we actually worked with St. Louis Children's Hospital to actually build the Purina Family Pet Center, we published in a journal how to actually do this. So if other hospitals are interested in doing this in the future, they have that resource available to them. So we went ahead and shared that knowledge because we think it's important, but it does require resources and commitment on the side of the hospitals. But I think also hospitals have to have their staff that do believe that there is a role for pets in medical intervention. And they do have a role. They do have a role in terms of supporting the rehabilitation, or even as Michelle mentioned, the mindset of the patient during recovery.
Do you think more traditional, maybe old school type medical professionals maybe aren't fully aware of that, or they don't want to go down this road yet?
I hope that's not the case, because we're starting to see a lot of respected hospitals that are started at least having different types of animal-assisted intervention programs, be it animal-assisted activities, animal-assisted therapy. It's just that of course, you have more trained dogs and cats, or dogs in this particular case, that are going to go in those scenarios. But when you're talking about a family pet center, Michelle said it really well. It's about the familiar. When you're in treatment, there's so many things that are so new and scary, and opportunity for fear and anxiety and resistance to wanting to continue. So if you bring in one of the most familiar positive elements in your life, in your family, your dog or your cat, it's almost contagious when they come in and they're just bounding in. They're so happy to see you. It's like yawning. You can't help but respond in the same way back to them, to reciprocate. And even though it's not a structured, goal-directed intervention like we do in animal-assisted activities or therapy, again, if you're playing, you might be actually seeing the children are willing to do some of the things that the doctors want them to do, and it's unprompted because this is now more natural. This is how they would behave with their pets. So I do think that hospitals, I think eventually, I hope, my dream is that, we are going to see more of these in the future. Purina is definitely, we are excited if we see this happening more and more in the future.
Yeah, you shared your research. You're hoping people steal this. Are you aware of any hospitals at this point who are working on making a pet center like this happen, even if it's not ready to be announced yet?
Not at this time, but one of the other facilities, we actually supported that, and it's in Belgium.
Oh, wow. So you guys are working all over the world on this.
Yes. We think that this is animal and the benefits of pets. We should be thinking globally in terms of where our reach is.
Something I find myself wondering is just how many families are even using this. It seems like something where for some families they might be like, I don't want to mess with bringing my dog on site, or maybe they're not even staying there long enough. Do you know how many families have been able to avail themselves of the Purina Family Pet Center at St. Louis Children's?
Yes, since the inception, more than 500 families have taken advantage of the opportunity to bring their pets to the St. Louis Children's Hospital. And of course, the stay has to be, I believe it's 5 or 7 days longer, but it's usually for patients that are going to be there for several weeks, several months.
It doesn't make sense for somebody who's just there for 48 hours.
Exactly.
And that 500 families, that's since 2016. So that's some pretty good usage there.
Exactly.
I imagine especially during the pandemic when everything was more complicated, you've got a whole year probably of somewhat skewed data. But that's remarkable, 500. Well, Michelle, this whole thing, it just sounds so wonderful. And it makes me think about Gavin and how he's doing today. This sounds like just about the scariest thing that could ever happen. And you guys were really there, just white-knuckling it. Bella starts coming. She's coming every week. Did Gavin begin to improve during that time?
He did. It just raised his spirits. We got into the same routine, doing the same things every day. We had no idea when the end was. So absolutely. Like you guys had both talked about, it actually helped with therapy. In therapy, he's having to do certain things because they're telling him. And his dog's there. He's reaching. He wants to pet her. He wants to do different things. But it's because he wants to love on his dog, not because he has to for therapy. And it definitely changed his attitude. And he was in a better mood, and it gave him something to look forward to.
And has he been able to check out? He's no longer a patient living on site?
This Friday will be 1 year since we have been home.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's a huge milestone. And he's doing well today?
He's doing amazing. Yes, on the road to recovery. Slow and steady, but he's getting there.
And I got to ask, how's Bella doing?
Oh, my gosh. She is so protective of him. So, he needs assistance with some things. And whenever we're moving him around or get near him, she's right there, making sure. She's like, okay, let me make sure you're okay with Gavin.
That's so great. And we want to let people know, if you're curious about Bella, this heroic dog, we do have a photo of her on our website. That's stlpr.org. Michelle Lane, thank you so much for joining us. And we're so glad to hear that everything's going so well.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It was great to be here.
And Sandra Lynn, Manager of Global Pet Behavior Research at Nestle Purina. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here. If you learned something new from today's episode, consider leaving us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the easiest way to help people discover our show. We appreciate it. Thank you. St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri, St. Louis.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, providing more than 41,000 jobs in the production of wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details at choosewood.com.